Good afternoon to one and all present here. I think, we waited for a few minutes, but I think we can begin right away. Okay, so we all have gathered here for a webinar which is focusing on pre-COP insights, which will obviously help us navigate the path towards climate leadership at Baku. So firstly, to introduce myself, I'm Priyanka Pothana. I'm the CEO of GC Advisory. I would be moderating this session today. So GC Advisory has been a pioneer in the carbon market since 2009, with almost 15 years of experience and having served more than 250 clients, generated more than $100 million carbon credits across sectors and geographies. We have been instrumental in navigating the path towards climate leadership. I'm highly privileged to share this platform with our esteemed panelists today. To begin with, let me introduce to you our panelist. Mr. Dinesh Babu is the Executive Director at InfraBlocks Capital, Singapore, with deep expertise in sustainable development, carbon markets, and clean energy. He has played a pivotal role in driving major initiatives, including leading the World Bank's $625 million concessional lending solar rooftop program. Recently, he directed the Climate Action Data Trust in Singapore, working to enhance transparency and integrity within the carbon markets. Currently, Mr. Dinesh is focused on establishing a decarbonization fund for Asia and Africa at InfraBlocks Capital, utilizing digital solutions to advance the carbon market ecosystem. Along with him, we have Mr. Vinay Deodhar. He is the Director of Clean Tech Solutions. He's a highly accomplished clean energy and climate finance professional, as well as a CDM Article 6 methodology specialist with over 35 years of experience in sustainable development and clean energy. Throughout his career, Mr. Deodhar has been pivotal in managing complex projects for both bilateral and multilateral development and financing agencies. Mr. Vinay has been a member of the registration and issuance monitoring methodology, issuance team and accreditation panel for UNCCC, CDM, as well as reviewer of baseline and monitoring methodologies. Recently, his expertise has been instrumental in reviewing green building certification schemes across developing countries. Mr. Deodhar is deeply passionate about delivering effective clean technology solutions and innovative finance strategies that align with environmental sustainability. Dr. P. Rambabu is a prominent thought leader in sustainability and climate change with over 45 years of experience in governance, sustainability, and climate change. Currently, he serves as the Chief Sustainability Officer at Greenco Group and as an advisor to the World Bank initiatives. Dr. Rambabu also founded GC Advisory in 2009. He has led over 200 sustainability initiatives across government bodies, international organizations, and corporations. His work has significantly influenced environmental governance, climate finance policies in India and globally. He is a strong advocate for net zero and circular economy. Dr. Rambabu works closely with leadership teams across India and Asia to drive transformative sustainability initiatives. So after the introduction of the esteemed panel here, I would just give you a brief about how we have structured this discussion today. Today's session is divided into 3 discussion rounds. Each discussion round would be led by a panel expert with contributions from other 2 panelists. Further, the question answer round has been kept right at the end. You may choose to scan the QR code which is presented on the screen right now, through which you can fill in a survey and request for questions. If time permits, we would be happy to answer all the questions right away. If not, we would be responding back to your questions with advice of our panel experts through emails. So as I told you, today's discussion is primarily broken down into 3 discussion rounds. They will be on the global stocktake and enhanced ambition. The second round is on unlocking the climate finance. And the third is around India's domestic carbon market. All of them are going to be focused upon how we are, overseeing COP29 and developments around the same. Further, I would also want to say that, the recent, I would say yesterday's results around the US elections We would want to keep that aspect little aside, and we will obviously be touching upon that. We understand that that is going to impact COP29 in a big way. But the 3 rounds of discussion, we will try to keep it away from this, and we will obviously have a small round of discussion right at the end, which will be directly addressing the US political situation and how it is going to impact the global scenarios. So with this, I would want to begin the first round of discussion, which is around the global stock enhanced ambition. With due permission of Mr. Dinesh Babu, I would be requesting him to lead this discussion. So with your due permission, I would begin. I will just give you a brief background and then we can go towards the further discussions. So at COP28 last year, almost 200 nations recognized the outcome of the global stocktake, which really called for deep, rapid, and sustained reductions in the greenhouse gas emissions in line with the 1.5 degrees climate target. But definitely we all would agree that action is yes to be taken, not only taken, but acceleration is something that we are really looking forward towards. COP28 was particularly momentous as it marked the conclusion of the first global stocktake of the world's efforts to address climate change under the Paris Agreement. Having shown that the progress was slow across all areas of climate action, whether it be reducing the greenhouse gas emissions, whether it be strengthening the resilience towards climate action, whether it is getting financial and technological support to vulnerable nations. And what we are looking towards is, a decision which is actually going to accelerate this action at COP29. Obviously, we are looking at more progressive discussions by governments towards transitioning away to fossil fuels. In the recent report on by the UN, in the climate change report, it is found out that the results are far short of what is actually needed. The results are quite stark, but not surprising. We all expected that. So the current national climate plans actually falls miles apart from what is needed to stop global heating from crippling every economy and wrecking billions of lives and livelihoods across countries. We all believe that COP29 is a vital moment in the world's climate fight, and today's data is blunt reminder of why COP29 must stand and deliver. So, I would want to, I'll request you to take this up, and I will, ask you pose it as a question to you. So as we approach COP29, what expectations do you have for the global stocktake and enhanced ambition? And particularly if you could, speak a few lines around, how we are going to look at NDCs, how are we going to, bridge the gaps, and what are the concrete commitments that would be required around climate finance, technology transfer, and capacity building? Over to you, Mr. Dinesh Babu.
Thank you so much, Priyanka. Good afternoon, good evening to all the participants for this webinar. I'm glad to see Rambabu sir and Vinay, I'm seeing you after a long time. I'm glad to see you. So it's a wonderful topic, and I immediately jumped to confirm that I would be able to be part of this panel. When Vinay and Rambabu sir are there, it's always great to see their views. And it's quite nice, Priyanka, that you have clarified in terms of how the discussions will take place. So in terms of the whole aspects of how we are approaching COP29 in a few days from now, you can't miss what you said. We should keep it aside for a moment, the US elections. So it brings a big smile on our faces now because it's going to give a lot of fun in the next few weeks to understand how the new government is going to react to it. Already we have started looking at the previous ministers and leaders making these predictions in terms of how the new government is going to move, which side they're going to take. And therefore, COP29 assumes much more attention than what we otherwise thought from a very limited carbon markets perspective, because everything now there is going to be at stake in terms of how the negotiations are going to move in a favorable direction. But I would start with something unassuming topic, which is not basically discussed in all the forums, is basically the tremendous progress on the loss and damage fund, because we always pick those areas where we see challenges. But this is the one I personally feel that I'm extremely happy with the progress since the last COP. That COP29 is really going to celebrate in terms of the progress achieved in the loss and damage fund. Vinay may have some points on that, but I could see that choosing the leader for leading the fund from Senegal, and then having close to three-quarter billion commitments from 25 countries, if I'm right, 23 to be very, very specific, and then choosing Philippines as a headquarters. So all those are moving in the right direction towards that. And why I'm picking up that is largely because of the resilience aspect of it. And therefore, it becomes extremely important to first celebrate the progress that COPs have produced so far. This is one of the best one I would like to highlight. And therefore, we would see it's a strategic move to have Philippines as headquarters. Vinay may agree with me that already ADB is there, but now World Bank is also touted to be playing a huge role in operationalizing the loss and damage fund. So therefore, plenty of action on that front. But we are yet to see from our perspective, from the private sector perspective, how the private sector could take a lead role in operationalizing those kind of initiatives, and how those could be converted into incentives and all other aspects. There's a huge opportunity and in taking part in the adaptation side of it. So that's the first aspect which COP29 may provide more positivity in terms of how that is going to be operationalized starting end of the COP, or even maybe from January. The second part, yes, as you rightly said, the GST didn't show promise. It said definitely there is a huge gap of 20 to 23.9 or 24 gigatons in terms of what you want to achieve the 1.5 degree path, and therefore you will see more emphasis in COP29 to understand how the countries have approached so far to publish their NDC, the next NDC in 2025. Just reminding that every 5 years we are expecting the countries to update their NDC. So each and every country is supposed to take their own ways and means to implement it. But what we have seen so far is a collective decisions by different regions to watch each other and then try to learn from each other, the South-South or the North-South, in whatever way the collaborations have to happen, have really taken a big step. And also for the first time, you would witness in COP29 the trachea in terms of the COP28, 29, and the 30 presidentship coming together to bring the themes always alive, to make it dynamic. And therefore, that has never happened before. So this is another move where we see that the focus on the NDC is going to be the most important topic. It's not that we are going to do something between today and January, because these countries are supposed to start publishing from next year. So therefore, most of the homework would have been done by several leading countries, and the NDC submissions have always been so far encouraging in terms of the timelines these countries have followed. And therefore, what we see is a huge shift in terms of understanding what is more commercially viable today, what the sectors need support to make it a bit more rapid in terms of commercialization, and what are the areas where the R&D has to be accelerated so that they move towards a near commercialization. So I don't know how many of you have seen the McKinsey report published in August. So they categorized into 12 categories, of which only 10% of the technologies are now fully commercialized to achieve the emission reductions, which is not a great story on the technology side. Then they say that around 40% of these technologies are moving towards a near commercialization. I'm not going to list all those 12 categories, but I'm just giving you a quick sense of what is happening. But the third one, the remaining 40% in the R&D includes utilization, capture, and storage. So I think the kind of technology development that India has witnessed, no other country in the world has witnessed, and therefore India could become a huge technology hub, a global technology hub for all these different categories which I just mentioned to you. And there is a lot of things to learn for the various countries to see how they can categorize and up the game in terms of bringing the electrification as a huge topic, followed by agriculture and transportation, and then move towards other kind of compelling but yet challenging technologies. So the NDCs have to focus on sectoral targets, which they have done it even before, but it's more towards the renewables, but I think they have to move beyond that. And then, of course, we all know 85% is carbon dioxide, but also we have to focus on methane and other gases as well. So therefore, the kind of 2050 net zero could be argued as net zero by carbon dioxide emissions and not for other emissions, which would take 2070 or 2080 onwards. But this is a time to initiate those discussions on addressing other gases, the non-CO2 gases as well, so that we could understand how the countries are going to approach them. So that's another point of it. The last one is I'll just touch so that I can give the baton to Vinay, is on the finance side, that we see a huge gap again. It's not now anymore millions or billions, it's now $1 trillion game that we are playing now. And the financing institutions are very closely looking into how the countries are going to give the certainty in the policies and regulations. I think this is of paramount importance right now. COP29 or COP30 or 31, it comes once in a year, but a lot of homework is being done by these countries together or in isolation. But now consolidation and collaboration are the key. And therefore, the financing gap is so much widely visible, and the financing sector is not even sitting on the fence. They're not even watching this space unless there is going to be a firm and a resolute from the developing countries and the developed countries in terms of showcasing certainty in the policy and the regulatory aspects of it, so that they can actively come inside and play in terms of the financing aspect of it, which I feel are bucketed into three ones, and then I'll give it to Vinay. First one is a blended finance, which we all now see as the mantra. Everywhere we are talking about blended finance, to have a financing structure with an attractive financing terms. And then we are talking about transition finance, shutting down the coal power plants and then transition to a clean aspects of it. And then the third one is countries moving towards a carbon pricing mechanisms. So these three would definitely have to be implemented and structured in a way that the financing sector gets a lot of confidence, so that they start deploying in billions and then work towards achieving the transition, which has to be really just. This is another topic altogether. And therefore, the SDGs and the finance and the climate goals all are coming together. And we feel that the COP29 will deliver to a greater extent on these aspects on the financing side of it. And of course, as I mentioned to you, the adaptation and the loss and damage side of it, again on the finance. And then the last aspect, which is the carbon market, which Babu sir will address, is about how the carbon markets will get key decisions. And again, that would trigger finance. So all that put together, it's very nice to hear that COP29 is dubbed as Finance COP. And therefore, I would love to hear more from Vinay on that aspect. Thank you, and over to you, Priyanka.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Dinesh. This was nice to hear from you. Now, Mr. Vinay, if you would want to add on to anything around, how the global stock take worked at COP28, and what is the, forward-looking action that is required, probably, increase in the ambition that, NDCs require. So if you could add on anything on that side, it would be great.
Yeah. Thank you, Priyanka, and thank you, Dinesh, for a very, very, wide coverage of the issues which are faced at the COP29. And as somehow some sections of the people and the experts were not very enthusiastic. They were not satisfied with the progress which was made on many aspects at the Dubai COP. But of course, knowing that it was taking place in a petroleum nation, so. But still, there are a lot of things were achieved, especially the loss and damage fund was a major achievement, as Dinesh rightly put. The other thing which I have heard, or I have feel that NCQG, that is new collective quantified goal, is being touted as a major topic being discussed, and in the context of the LD loss and damage fund as well. So that is going to be a discussion which will feed into the new guidelines for the NDCs by the different countries. So my feeling is that there will be a lot of discussion on this topic. Also, operationalization of the Article 6 is another issue which was not, which did not move much in the COP28. I hope, and I have a lot of optimism on that there's time that now the movement will be there. on that front. And we are saying that Article 6.2 is moving in one direction, Article 6.4 is moving in the same direction as CDM was moving, just with some additions which are required by the Paris Agreement. So I see that there has to be a a goal synchronization between these two, because there is a lot at stake if there is a difference between credit earned under Article 6.2 and Article 6.4, which might create a big question mark on which ones to believe and which one not to believe, because Article 6.4 will strictly follow the methodologies which have been developed starting with the CDM as the basis, and so they will go more and more stricter towards as a stringency levels, whereas Article 6.2, the whole thing is in a cloud at the moment, and I hope they both synchronize together and we will have a climate where you will have confidence in the ton of carbon dioxide earned under 6.2 and 6.4. So this is a major issue. I hope that will be taken up. And my feeling is that looking at the yesterday's event, I think the COP and CMA will have to move very aggressively during the first 6 months of the next year, because by that time whatever is to happen might happen in the US walking out again out of Paris Agreement, or even they were talking about walking out of UNFCCC itself. So that could be a disastrous result if at all it happens. And I hope the sanctity will will fall on the decision makers, even though there have been a lot of noises made. But I see some good side to it, is that people like Elon Musk joining with Musk and Trump, and then they will probably try to push them towards not going to the dangerous decision making. So I think the NDCs which are going to be in the next year is going to be very crucial, and most of the countries are I feel that they're moving towards a more stringent NDCs, although not all that uniformly, but I hope that there will be a good movement towards achieving the goal of the Paris Agreement as far as the COP is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Vinay, for your insights. Dr. Ram, if you would want to add on to what Mr. Vinay and Mr. Dinesh said, we would love to hear to you as well. Sir, you're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you, Priyanka. Dinesh, we missed you at the Asia Climate Summit. Right? Nice
Yes,
to
sir.
see
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Vinay was there. It's wonderful. Right. I think very rightly, Dinesh and Vinay both pointed out to the loss and damage fund. And also in the way that we are discussing about the whatever has happened yesterday in US, I think what can survive easily, even if it is outside Paris Climate Agreement, is the loss and damage fund and its operations. So the development is a very interesting and important development that happened in Dubai and is going to get strengthened further in Baku. I think Dinesh has pointed out rightly that we need to see how the private sector also can get involved and the various mechanisms can. Okay, the one way to look at it is that if the thought process is that if you are failing to prevent, okay, or if you doubt the cause of climate change or global warming, and if you are due to that we are failing to prevent, at least we will be acting on loss and damage. So adaptation. I think the adaptation will receive lesser controversy. Will face lesser controversy. And on top of it, I think we have come to some level of agreement on loss and damage fund, etc., etc. I think, but the main topic here is that the heightening the ambition in response to the GST global stock take, okay, at Dubai. I think it is almost everybody is agreeing that we need to heighten the ambition and improve the ambition. And ratcheting the ambition was anyway part of the Paris Agreement's framework. So there are many guys who are talking about can we make the new NDCs more short-term and measurable. Okay, measurable has always been there, but little more short-term, more like a path towards net zero rather than little longer, like only 2030 kind of a number. So I think the route towards 2030, okay, is something that is also being discussed about. And another thing that I think it will be very, very useful is that if some level of binding nature, okay, of NDC, if the negotiators can bring in, so that will be very, very good. And the other point I was saying is that across the developed countries, we have been hearing that we can do the NDCs by our own efforts. Okay, we can meet our NDCs by our own efforts. Okay, and the markets are not, as of today, not required to meet our own NDCs. And actually, that points out to a region that the NDCs were less ambitious. In fact, they can be more ambitious and they can drive the internal efforts of the developed countries and also the large leverage that we can drive from the markets, international carbon markets. And actually, the whole thing can drive action in the developing world and LDCs. So to me, it looks like the reason why we all need to go and heighten our ambition, both the developing countries, and how the developed countries' ambition increment can be supplemented or can be addressed by taking the help of international carbon markets and thereby raising the finance, etc., etc. I think that is that will be another important thing. I am not sure whether it is not on the table as of today, that particular part, but I think at least I can hear the noises around that, heightening the ambition and using the markets effectively. Till today, we'll come back again, we'll discuss the Article 6 and operationalization, etc., etc. Much of it didn't happen and too much of focus has been there that we need to do by ourselves. So each country needs to do by itself. Okay. So I think we and Dinesh also pointed out till 2030, whatever we wanted to do with the lower ambitions, I think we seem to be in place. But some technologies have developed in the meantime, and there is a lot of effort in developing those technologies. So there is a reason for heightening the ambition there too. And another important thing I wanted to point out is that in finance, it is not only rewarding the climate action that is reducing or mitigating the greenhouse gases, but also we need to find out ways and means of funding the innovation and research and development. That McKinsey report, and McKinsey has been emphasizing this particular point, that a significant amount of technologies need to be developed, okay, for achieving net zero, a CO2 net zero, let us call that way, by 2050. A lot of research and development needs to be done. I still don't believe that the markets can drive the R&D. Markets can definitely drive the deployment of known technologies. But if we really want to do that R&D part of it and encourage, etc., etc., I think maybe you can look at Article 6.8 and as Vinay pointed out, maybe NCQG type of efforts. I don't know. All that needs to be thought about as to how that can be driven. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Priyanka.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Ram, for your insights into this. Also, so I mean, with this, we would be like concluding the discussion round 1, which was focused on COP29 expectations, global stocktake, and the ambition. I mean, we had really interesting thoughts here, from loss to damage fund to how we can see technology advancements in India, how we need to move ahead of NDCs, have more ambitious NDCs. Focus should be more towards other sectors other than RE. We understood about consolidation, collaboration, which is what is going to bring about, more effective change. We need more funding towards net zero initiative. We want NDCs and ambition should be more focused and short. So these are some of the insights that we have got during our discussion round one. And even as a GC stake, we really believe that the present NDCs of the developed nations can meet through their own actions, actually without market. But if markets also come, there will be a larger impact and there can be an increased ambition. And we strongly believe that there is a need for increased and heightened ambition is required. With this, I would want to move towards the next discussion, which is primarily focused around unlocking the climate finance. We are going to focus around the carbon markets, innovation and implementation. Mr. Vinay would be the expert who would be contributing towards this particular discussion round. Before we begin, we are all expecting that Article 6 can make or break the carbon markets at COP29. We are really looking forward towards it, and what are the developments that we can see towards Article 6. Today, as the global community actually aligns with Paris Agreement's ambitious goals, we will explore the pivotal role of carbon markets in mobilizing the climate finance, which is necessary to achieve these targets. With this, I would request Mr. Vinay to add on and give his expert insights around some of the key mechanisms, Article 6, and what is his outlook towards COP29 and how will everything turn out thereon. Over to you, Mr. Vinay.
Thank you, Priyanka. Carbon markets are poised to take off. That's what my optimistic expectation is. And during the last year, what happened was we were all ready for launch of Article 6.4 mechanism, but unfortunately the discussion got merged into and because of the clubbing of my feeling is that because it was clubbed. Mitigation and removals were clubbed together. Unlike in the CDM days, they had kept them separately. Maybe because lot movement was not there on removal side. But during the CDM, the number of projects and number of project methodologies that came up in the removal. So it was developed together. And probably my feeling is that because they were clubbed together, they were not approved at the last COP. But I think this COP is going to be in a high time that the approval will be accorded to an Article 6.4 supervisory body has made a lot of effort in terms of clearing the background and the preparation of the rules and regulations of methodologies which will be according to the rules, modalities and procedures of Paris Agreement, Article 6.4. And so I think we are now ready. In fact, in the last meeting of the supervisory body held in last month, October, they converted the methodology tool into a methodology standard, which becomes a mandatory tool to be applied for developing methodologies. And so I think a lot of discussions have taken place and a good product I feel has come out. And I am quite hopeful that it will get approved by the CMA at this COP. So that is number one. That now we expect in the first quarter of 2025, we will see good movement. And already the methodology panel has held 3 meetings and they have come out and they have started, taking the CDM methodologies and making them suitable, migrating them to Article 6.4. So that good progress, which we see in the last 2 meetings, especially, I think it will continue in the next quarter and in next year also. And then we will see a number of projects coming up, number of methodologies. I am myself involved in developing a methodology which deals with the early retirement of fossil fuel, basically coal power projects. And because there is a movement under Paris Agreement that the unlocking of economies from fossil fuel is very important, and that effort is taking off with this kind of methodologies. But I feel that even the VCM, the voluntary carbon markets, are moving quite swiftly, and the formation of the ICVCM is giving more credibility to the credits which are developed by the voluntary carbon markets. In fact, last 6 months or so, I see that the VCMs are thinking of developing and helping countries to do projects under 6.2 also, because some of the projects may not be possible to cover under 6.4, which can be developed under 6.2. So these corresponding adjustment rules, as they are getting firmer and firmer and more definitive, I think this movement is going to help a lot in the carbon market development of carbon market. So except for the possibility of US not going to be there in the the Paris Agreement, other than this, I think the movement is quite good for the carbon market, and we see that the potential of the markets will be more and more utilized to the fullest. So I'm quite optimistic that there is a lot of scope for innovation, and that is being shown also by the VCMs. And I'm sure from the next year, when the new methodology panel will take over, because this current methodology panel was only for 1 year, so they will be replaced with a new panel. I think they will also take cues from the VCMs, and they will move more aggressively towards converting these. And because right now it's only migration of CDM registered projects moving into the Article 6.4. The other development that has taken place is the approval of the Sustainable Development Tool. And the difference between the earlier tool and this tool is that it's going to be mandatory under Article 6.4 mechanism to apply the SD tool. And not only that, but the projects have to be validated by the VVBs against the SD tool also, application of SD tool also. So that is going to make a little tougher for the project proponents to get the projects which will satisfy both the VVB and as the Article 6.4 supervisory body. But then as the this learning by doing, so I expect that by end of the next year, the project developers and the mechanism will become more and more smooth, and the movement and approval of projects will improve quite a lot. So this is my feeling regarding carbon market in the next short term next year. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Thank you so much, Mr. Vinay, for your insights into this. Mr. Dinesh, will you want to add in something here with respect to carbon markets, climate finance?
Yeah, I think Vinay covered a lot ground in terms of the progress and where we are. So the only I'll limit on a couple of points probably. One is, of course, the first bold step that the supervisory body took in terms of kind of moving ahead with the methodologies and the process and the procedures ahead of CMA's approval. This has never happened before. So this is a litmus test for the CMA, whether to just acknowledge and note and consent to what has been already approved by the SB, or again reopen it and go deep and try to further complicate the whole process. So this is literally a litmus test to them, and I hope better sense prevails in terms of how they would like to encourage SB to move forward. But at the same time, since it would give a precedence, it may give more powers to SB on certain aspects which CMA may not want to do as well. So that's a very, very interesting point to watch at COP29, what they're going to do. That's number one. The other point is in terms of 6.2 specifically, I hope Vinay and Rambabu sir will agree with me that things have moved on. Nobody is now waiting for COPs to give any directions other than the centralized actions, as you rightly said, Priyanka, about the whole process in terms of how it is being reported. So maybe the COP reporting, the agreed electronic format reporting, those can continue to be discussed. Even the registry is a very good point. But having said that, the 6.2 activities on ground has now, I would say, in my own expression, has exploded. A lot of things are happening as we speak across and between the countries, and therefore only the financing and the insurance and the rating side of the private sector is a bit worried, because they need certainty in terms of how the revocation would be addressed, how the reversal would be addressed, how the infrastructure of the registries and interoperability would be addressed. So these are the main critical points, which I'm not fully optimistic. That's why I use the word cautiously optimistic that COP29 would try to just very quickly address these points and bring sanity into the whole process. But I feel overall what Vinay said is what is to be seen as the next steps and moving forward in operationalizing the Article 6.
Great. Thanks, Dinesh, for your insights into this. Dr. Ram, would you wish to add anything more to what Mr. Vinay and Dinesh said?
Well, again, I think I am in a panel where the experts, are bringing all necessary points. And Vinay actually explained in and out of what has happened and what will happen, and whatever little that was left, I think Dinesh has covered very well. I will only take certain points which are little away from these two, and I would also little play a devil's advocate or a different kind of a approach, and what I think want to see as an improvement in the way that the Article 6.2 and 6.4 gets implemented. And both Dinesh and Vinay also sit at various panels and committees where some of these conversations they are also part of. Hence, I want to put before them also these points. Even at Asia Climate Summit, when Uma was presenting Article 6.2 architecture, right? I very clearly told him, look, the Article 6.2 is becoming like a default JCM. And I think this architecture, very welcome that the JCM took the first initiative much before even anything about Article 6. And that is very well appreciated. But nothing in the text of Article 6.2 requires it to be like JCM. It could be multilateral, it could be a single project can be supported by 3 to 4 to 5 countries, and the whole agreement between the countries could be project-based, not necessarily a bilateral framework agreements, etc., which are causing a lot of irritation in India. So I think the Article 6.2 architecture has to start becoming more in spirit, should respect the Paris Agreement's text rather than one pilot that was tested very well and very welcome pilot, of the JCM, and many other, everybody else followed the JCM because it helps the growth of Article 6.2. The second thing I wanted to point out is that I appreciate that we all know, we all were part of the way the CDM developed, etc. We appreciate the way the CDM developed and the arguments of additionality within CDM, etc., So I think when all countries have their own NDCs, some of these the architecture of the Paris Agreement is different from the architecture of the Kyoto Protocol. So some of the concepts have a limited applicability today than it was before. So I think that point is not getting reflected in the Article 6.4. Article 6.4 needs to be much more, even 6.2 needs to be much more stringent. But it is not the stringency in terms of that it is unviable, it is etc. It is in the stringency in terms of is this technology, is this path, is this measure a part of net zero world, or is it taking to another kind of a path, etc. There are many questions that are much more important under the framework and architecture of Paris Agreement than that was important in the in the Kyoto Protocol. And when I pointed out between the Article 6.2, 6.4, the 6.2 will definitely look more like a JI, right? And 6.4 will look more like CDM, even though it is JI. As long as the corresponding adjustments between the 3 to 4 to 5 countries involved in a project, and the corresponding adjustment is appropriately accounted for, I think we shouldn't have much of a concern vis-a-vis Article 6.2 and 6.4. In 6.4, of course, you have a challenge of who is going to use that credit that is generated is not known. Hence, the corresponding adjustment, how it will be made. And I think that is the reason why you have that, what is it? There is some adjustment, no, which is global climate goals adjustment, right? There is some adjustment in Article 6.4. I think that is working well. So I think the 6.2 could be look more like a GI, and we need to focus more on how these corresponding adjustments are made, what is the integrity of the corresponding adjustment rather than the individual projects. And Article 6.4, because we really do not know who will make that corresponding adjustment. So we need to have that sort of rigidity, okay, in Article 6.4. And more importantly, when the point I want to talk about is that the markets, international carbon markets, to the ITMOS market, okay, or the Article 6 markets, are actually restricted by demand. The kind of demand that we are seeing cannot drive the action that is required to get to net zero by 2050. Just not possible. It's true. It is a demand of the size of what we see maybe pre-2005 of CDM. The Article 6 demand, very, very nascent and very small pilot. And, I think this demand will not work. Okay. Basically, I think there should be a lot of focus, discussion, if not at Baku, the discussion can start at Baku, heighten the ambition to actually kickstart and create demand for international carbon market. I think that is very, very important. Unless otherwise the market becomes a $100 billion kind of a market. I think it cannot drive generating annual requirement of what, $9 trillion over and above the present finance. Okay, we require around $9 trillion to drive to net zero by 2050. So if that is the kind of investment it has to drive, and that markets have to become a primary source of that, I think we require much larger demand and than this. So I think the focus, the conversation at COP29 should start on actually scaling up the demand, bootstrapping the demand, I think, for international carbon market. The rules, I'm very, very happy with Article 6.4 supervisory body. And I think both of you pointed out that I'm absolutely happy. The way it moved, and it is very likely to move very, very well. I think the similar kind of a sort of dynamism was shown by CDM Executive Board after 2005. So, that is the kind of dynamism we are seeing. Now, again, the CMA, what it will do, and also as we move forward, okay, how the demand will shape up, scale up, bootstrap. I think these are the issues there. Thank you, Priyanka. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Ram, for your insights. So just to summarize this round of discussion, it was very interesting. We got very good insights from all our experts over here. Obviously we are looking forward to many more things here, how, developments will take place at COP29 and thereafter also. So, how will CMA react? We are looking at, Mr. Vinay pointed about approval of the Sustainable Development Tool, which is also a requirement now. How Article 6 needs to be more stringent. We spoke about these aspects. And definitely through this discussion, we had insights into the critical role of carbon markets in raising climate finance. We said that it is not from million, billion, but now it is at trillions is what we are looking at. We are looking at innovative solutions, collaborative efforts, and implementation strategies. From a perspective of GC, we really believe that through carbon market mechanism, developing and least developing nations will be able to build capacity towards mitigation and meet net zero goals in future. We believe that especially with respect to ITMOS, clarity of rules for generating and using ITMOS have to emerge at COP29. And also the developed nations' attempt to keep away from international carbon markets to meet NDCs will be challenged. So that is something that we look forward towards. We definitely desire that the developed nations should increase their ambition and meet their increment in ambition through the international carbon markets or ICMAs. And I can see there is a lot of conversation which is happening at the back end in the chat box as well. And definitely, if time permits, we will love to pick up some of those topics and have quick discussions around those as well. So with this, I will want to move to the next round of discussion, which is primarily towards the India's domestic carbon market, and how we are going to accelerate our NDC achievement and net zero ambitions. So Dr. Ram, I would request you to bring in your insights around these aspects. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. I would like to be brief because you are saying that there's, I also see that there's a lot of chat in the chat boxes. I think we will have to give an opportunity for, because there are quite a lot of experts in the audience too, who would definitely like to add to the discussion. So as far as the India's domestic carbon markets are concerned, the way that I look at the architecture that I look at it is that the domestic carbon markets have to be designed to meet their own NDCs, the country's NDCs. It is almost like a putting together a cap and trade system or a taxing mechanism or an incentive mechanism, whatever policy that you want to implement to meet your own NDCs. And a linkage with the international carbon markets can also be put in there in place to stabilize and to stabilize the markets, domestic carbon markets. In India, as all of you know, that the responsibility of putting together the domestic carbon markets were given to the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, which has previously implemented a similar kind of a market, which was at that time called PAT, Perform, Achieve, Trade. And it has the architecture of that was, of course, there are certain obligated entities, and the obligated entities are given certain targets. And if they overachieve those targets, they have certain credits to sell. And if they underachieve the targets, they can actually make up by buying those credits. It is some parallel to a cap and trade mechanism. The settlements used to happen through exchanges, but not on a real-time basis, but periodically. So many of us have also participated in this e-certs market, okay, which was almost parallel to the REC RPO market, right? So that is what was in India. So the BEE, Bureau of Energy Efficiency, was given the task of doing it. So many of you already must be knowing that quite a good amount of progress is made there. They have already, only thing that is pending, as I understand, is that they actually need to declare the obligated entities and the obligations that the obligated entities will have. Okay, so I think that work is going on, and they have already, just as in PAT, they send the teams to each of the obligated entities sites to determine or to negotiate and settle on a target, and I think that work is going on now. The important aspect in the domestic market, which they need to actually also feature in, is the besides obligated entities, who else can participate? Can the beyond obligated entities, if there is somebody who does emission reductions which are otherwise not business as usual, okay, which are those entities that will do that? And those entities' emission reductions, can they become the part of the market? I think that issue is also resolved. Linkage with the international market is also resolved. Affirmatively, the domestic market answers that. But how it will do, when it will do, I think is a little clear. So the most important point on the domestic carbon market is that they are doing well, but they need to accelerate it. They are doing well, but they need to link. They need to see a clear link of NDC. Okay, use the domestic market as a tool to meet the NDCs. For example, the forestry-related NDC, domestic carbon market doesn't even play a role in that. Okay, so will it come and sort of help achievement of that NDC by including that in the non-obligated entities projects, etc., etc. So there are many of those issues which the domestic carbon market needs to sort of answer. But what I am seeing in the domestic carbon market is that if I see long term, if I see that as an instrument for India's net zero ambition achievement, okay, the domestic carbon market to me looks like moving in right direction. But if I look at a short term and ask myself a question, how is it designing itself to meet the NDCs of India by 2030 or 2025, 2028, 2026? I am seeing a lot of gaps, and there is a lot of work to be done. So the longer term sight seems to be right, but the short term goals, achievement, etc., I think it has to, its design elements have to very clearly address how the NDCs can be achieved. So that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Ram. Mr. Dinesh, if you would want to add on to anything, very quickly, how you look at the Indian domestic markets.
Thanks, Priyanka. But when Rambabu sir says that's it, we can't say anything more than that. But coming to the Indian carbon market, there is so much to see in the next 12 months to 24 months. A lot of moving parts, as sir said, but it's very difficult to determine this is the way the market is going to go. At least for India, because we are the only one country that we have to 2070 as a target so far, as considering the size of the country and the emissions. Though we have 2060 and more than 2050, there are a few countries as well. But the point here is that how the intersection happens, as you have mentioned in the last topic, the mix of voluntary and compliance, how that is going to really help to unlock the real finance within the country, and of course explore international kind of cooperation in terms of technology transfer or any other aspects. That is a critical part which I am personally interested to watch the progress, how the industry is going to react to pick between the kind of the set market, which is basically the conversion of PAT into carbon market scheme, plus a domestic voluntary scheme, plus these international markets under the Article 6. There is going to be multiplicity of assets, and therefore we really need a structured carbon product to unlock the finance. Otherwise, we really get kind of, I would say we really get missed in terms of what you really wanted to achieve. NDC is one part. Yes, every country should look inward first. But having said that, if you're setting a market, as I mentioned to you, at least 20 years of certainty is required, which no country can provide, we know that, but at least certain fundamental foundational principles for a well-structured carbon markets have to be done now with the full majority government and the policy and the regulatory aspects in place. Today, this government has a big task in getting those foundational principles in order. If that doesn't happen, it is going to be a huge miss because of the multiplicity of the carbon market infrastructure which we are going to witness. We are not even talking about the registry infrastructure, the trading platforms, the products, the financing instruments yet. So just imagine. So we have a long way to go in terms of streamlining the market, but all what Sir mentioned makes absolute sense in terms of understanding the path that we are moving forward.
Absolutely. Sure. Thanks. Thank you so much. Mr. Vinay, will you want to quickly add on to them?
Yes, I think, just a few words, because I think Ram and Dinesh have covered most of the ground. I just wanted to narrate in the, Asia Climate Summit, Mr. Saurabh Didi was present at the summit, and then I just spoke with him regarding this domestic market, what is the progress, and he was quite optimistic and sounding, the architecture of the, whole domestic market is being made, and most of course he agreed that the skeleton is going to be based on CDM as the basis for methodologies to come out, and as I think Rambabu mentioned, our target is 2070 net zero, which is quite a distant target, so it's quite difficult to see or develop a path towards that, but I think we are making a right movement towards it. In addition, I also see in parallel the technologies which they declared under Article 6.2, which India will approve. are quite promising new technologies. And that, to answer one question Mr. Rambabu mentioned, was that you need to have more stress on new technologies, technology development. I think that is going to address, that is going to make that, because the technologies which they have mentioned in that, they are really high-tech technologies. So I hope, I hope overall, I think we will be able to gain a lot and move, methodically towards our net zero ambition. So this is my, feeling.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Vinay. So I would just quickly, give a conclusion to this particular discussion round. I mean, it was really interesting to hear so much around this. We actually understood how we can have a structured and more methodology-oriented carbon market, how we need to declare obligated entities, how we need to accelerate the change, how we need to have short-term goals, and how the industries will actually react to the compliance and the international markets. And obviously, very well pointed out was the multiple markets that we are in, and multiple mechanisms and multiple arrangements that we are in, and how will all of this be dealt with. And there is a need to have more technological development to achieve the NDCs. Moving from here on, I would just very quickly request each one of you to give a few lines around what is our, probably your view on the recent US elections, and what do you think is going to be expected in the near future around the climate policies globally. So very quickly, because we are running out of time, we've clocked 4:10 already. So I will just, allow you a minute or so if you all can just quickly speak on those.
Yeah, thanks, Priyanka. I already posted my response and we discussed a bit as well. So nothing new to add. Three quick points. One is the new administration will not scrap IRA, because IRA has a strong link towards Make in America, like what we have Made in India or Make in India. So from that angle, the new administration will still push the domestic focus and still go for new technologies. Right now, if you have not known, please go and check on this negative shot initiative under the IRA. It's a huge program on capture, engineered removals. So a lot of money is being pumped in to develop new technologies on that. That's number one. So therefore, IRA will still continue in one way or the other. The second part is that whether the Paris Agreement is going to be scrapped or not, as I said, the world is moving on. So therefore, let US become an observer again. Who cares? The whole world will move on, and the financing sector, if they get the signal, whether they're in the US or in the EU, they're going to support what is going to happen in the rest of the world. So that's my second kind of a point. The third one is that because of Elon Musk, as Vinay, I think Vinay mentioned about this, the kind of tilt towards at least the transportation will get a boost globally, and with this influence, there could be a lot of US collaboration happening across the world. And if he tilts towards other technologies, I'm not talking about space, but we are talking about the McKinsey report addressing the small nuclear, the modular reactors, which Google and others have started discussing. Singapore has launched that scheme as well. They are bringing 100 nuclear experts in Singapore as a consortium to discuss about having modular nuclear reactors. So maybe Elon Musk could be a silver lining in the whole process. So these are my limited points on the question, Priyanka.
Great. Thank you so much. Mr. Vinay, if you would want to add on a few sentences here.
I'm a very optimistic person, and I feel that even though Trump might decide for ceremonial stake, because he had in his campaign itself, he had said that dig more, dig boy, dig, to go for more oil and other things. I hope that the sanity will prevail, and because the Biden administration had passed two important acts which bind the US, though not internationally, but all during in the domestic market, they bind the US to certain measures which they have initiated, and I think those will continue. And also, US might continue in some other fashions under Article 6.2 with some other countries. So my feeling is that this 4 year is a short period in the life of the Paris Agreement, I hope, and I think we will come back and we will be able to meet the targets of the we better be on the line. The other thing is that you might have heard about Corsia, and Corsia is moving very, very rapidly, and I think airlines are much interested in meeting the carbon target. So I am very hopeful on that front as well. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Thank you so much. Dr. Ram, if you would want to add on to.
Yeah, I agree with all of them. I think, in the climate action in the recent years, last 4-5 years, what I saw is that less civil society and less government and more business. I think the business smelled, or the investment smelled quite a lot of fruit in the investing into these technologies, and there is a lot of money lying around seeking the better investments. The decarbonization infrastructure or clean infrastructure, if you don't want to call it decarbonization infrastructure, this new infrastructure that we are talking about requires huge amount of finance, and it can re-architect the whole globe, and we will have better life in that. I think that enlightened business interest, which is also reflected in IRA and other kind of acts, I think that will survive. That is very, very likely to survive. The Paris Agreement is a bit more than that, because it links that to decarbonization, it links that to avoiding global warming, etc., etc. That architecture may have a disadvantage, as Vinay was saying, 4 years, which is not a very long life, and we survived the Kyoto Protocol without US. Actually, really speaking, we survived. It did a lot of positive action during the Kyoto Protocol. And it is in that respect, again, I say the Europe has to become much more active now, has to create demand now. Europe, Japan, Canada, and even many countries like India. I think we need to create demand for the internationally transferred mitigation outcomes, which are correspondingly adjusted. And I think we will pass it. We will survive. I think climate action will survive.
Priyanka, only one quick point I want to add. Give me 30 seconds on this, which I think would be your next topic very soon, is about the net zero standards and how the countries are approaching. I'm part of the advisory group for the World Bank for ISO work on the net zero standards, and many of the developing countries are underrepresented in that process. So that is for one reason. The second reason, they are completely ignoring the use of carbon markets for meeting, even if you say the residual emissions. So that is another topic which could be influenced by India. And I see very limited representation from developing countries, including India. So that could be another discussion in terms of not only for the use of carbon credits for the net zero, but also as a topic in general, because of the reason Sir was mentioning about the linking the decarbonization of each and every country towards the ultimate Paris Agreement goal. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks. Great. So I think, we had a really insightful discussion around multiple topics, in our this 3 discussion rounds. So a few thoughts that, we wanted to share as concluding remarks. While there was definitely extensive discussion around increasing funding for climate action to emerging and developing economies, most proposed solutions lack thorough analysis on scalability and impact. So that is what I think we need to look for. We need more research, more attention on domestic and international carbon policies that address the root cause and not just symptoms. There are 6 actions that we believe as we head into COP would help at a very broader level. Moving from geopolitical fragmentation to climate coalition building is something that we look forward to. Moving towards reality-based financing strategies to meet the climate goals. Prioritizing fast actions to slow rate of warming, expanding energy decarbonization solutions to achieve energy security, moving from individual climate projects to climate as an infrastructure problem, and moving from target setting to a pathway planning. So this is something that we think, could be the climate action as we head into COP. Definitely, we are navigating a complex problem, which is the climate action, climate change, while addressing a long-term problem as climate as mitigating climate change, we will require actors which inherently flexible, learning through trial and error. As leaders head to Baku amidst the division and fragmentation, reframing the core problem of climate challenge may open doors to overcoming differences through considering novel research and approaches across multiple governments and stakeholders alike. So with these concluding remarks, I would really thank each one of you who are present here. And the team GC is going to be present at Baku. Me, along with my team, are going to be there from the 12th to 18th of November. And I really look forward to interacting with many of you present here and obviously the larger stakeholder group. And thank you once again to all of you who are present here, and much thank you to all the esteemed panelists who are here. Thank you so much. We really had a very insightful discussion. Thank you for your time.